like to call this meeting to order. Good morning to you. It's Tuesday, September 27th, 10:07 in the morning. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for the California State Board of Equalization. My name is Malia Cohen, chair of this body, and to my left is the vice chair, Mike Schaefer. Ms. Cicchetti, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Could you please call the roll?
Would you mind holding 1 minute? We have a little bit of technical difficulty. We're trying to get the AT&T operator on.
Absolutely.
All right, we are live.
All right, we are live.
All righty.
Welcome.
Chair Cohn,
Present.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Present.
Member Gaines,
Present.
Member Vasquez,
Present.
and Deputy Controller Eppolite.
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Cicchetti. I appreciate that. A quorum is present. Board colleagues, let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise if you're able and place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. I am really excited. It is Latino Heritage Month and September, and I just wanted to frame our conversation on the purpose of why we celebrate Latino Heritage Month. It's entirely appropriate that we honor the tradition, of Latin folks, Hispanics throughout the Americas. The observation started in 1968, and it started as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson, and it was expanded by President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period starting on September 15th and ending on October 15th. And this period of celebration honors the contribution of American citizens whose ancestors come from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central and South America. The day of September 15th is significant because it is the anniversary of independence for Latin American countries. Those countries include Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. And in addition, Mexico and Chile also celebrate their independent days on September 16th and 18th, respectively. Also want to note Columbus Day, or Dia de la Raza, which is celebrated on October 12th, also falls within this 30-day period. So here in California, we recognize that between 2010 and 2020, Latino share of the state's population grew from 37.6% to 39.4%. And in 2020, the Latinos' share of the population exceeded non-Hispanic white share of the population, with Latino being the state's largest population group. And the Latino population is younger than any other Californians. More than half, 51.6% of all Californians under 18 are Latino. So the future of our state will be shaped by these young Latinos as they become leaders here in the state of California. I also want to recognize the significant political gains made by representation by Latins in our state and in our nation, including our very own board member, Antonio Vasquez, who is the first Latino chair of the Board of Equalization, as well as with all great communities that make up our state, our nation's diversity, we take a great joy in living in a time when the horizons are open for achievement and excellence. After all, that is truly the American dream. So therefore, we honor Latino Heritage Month. And with that, I'd like to pivot to our own Tony Vasquez. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Great job with some of that background history. You covered actually most of my points, but let me just add that I am honored, like the chair just mentioned, to be the first Latino, actually Mexican-born, to sit on the State Board of Equalization. And I was blessed when I was locally in Santa Monica to be the first Latino city council member and the first mayor, Latino mayor of the city of Santa Monica. And a lot of it has to do with what the chair had just touched on, just the growing population. As a young student at USC, I was really involved with voter registration, because as our population was blowing up, we realized that we need to get more and more of these folks, one, to become citizens, and then two, to vote. And it all ties into, and I look at it more as the Latino Heritage Month. Somehow they gave us Hispanic. I'm not sure where that name came from. It has really no roots in my history or Latino or Mexican roots. And even for some of the other Latin American countries that were mentioned, I think it was kind of created out of the census back when Carter was the president. And to me, it has really no significance or history connection. So I like to use Latino Heritage Month. And I know some people mix the two, but I really appreciate the fact that the governor, our current governor, stepped up and actually did a proclamation just recently talking about the Latino Heritage Month and really dedicating this month, starting September 15th, which is really the day before the independence of Mexico from Spain. And it's part of the Grito, and then carried over all the way to October 15th, which encompasses also Dia de la Raza, which is better known, or was known as a kid when I was growing up. You know, we didn't talk about it. It was Columbus Day, basically. And now that's flipped, and rightfully so. And I really appreciate the embrace and the support we've been getting throughout the state of California, and only looking forward to continue this growth. Because at the end of the day, the Latino agenda is really California agenda. It's all about education, where we're going to talk a little bit later today, affordable housing, and and good paying jobs. So I really appreciate the support and looking forward, not only here on the board, but many of the cities throughout the state of California have done some real good celebrations throughout this period. And I was blessed actually just last week to attend the 60th anniversary of KMEX, now better known as Univision. It started, back 60 years ago, and I remember attending it. They were literally in a little shack on Melrose and just outside of Hollywood. And now, if you look at their facility, it's in Culver City, just real close to LAX. They have this beautiful building, and in many arenas, it's kind of the actual station in terms of advertisement is just blossomed. I didn't realize that the advertising power of Univision is sometimes, depending on what they're looking at, it has more financial power than some of like Channel 7 and Channel 4 in terms of advertising dollars. So it's really grown, and I'm looking forward to continue that growth and that support. And thank you for those kind words, Madam Chair, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Colleagues, I want to open the floor up to you to see if there's any remarks that you may like to share with any. Yes, Mr. Schaefer, and then we'll go to you, Senator Gaines.
Yes, well, I just wanted to toot the horn for my District 4. We are the fastest growing Latino community in the state. And I'd also like to take note that today is the last day of a Happy New Year of the Jewish community, Rosh Hashanah, and we celebrate that this time every year.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, you're right. We have a lot to celebrate. Thank you for reminding us of that. Senator Gaines, what's on your mind?
Yeah, let's see. My mic's on. You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Good, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, good morning, and thank you for those great comments. And I just want to add in terms of Latino Heritage Month, and I think America has an exciting future, as does California, with the expanding Latino population and the contributions that they make to our society. Family-oriented, hardworking entrepreneurs. When you take a look at those aspects, that bodes hope for the future in America. So I'm very excited to embrace Latino Heritage Month and honor those who have served. Times have not been easy for Latinos in America or California if we look back at our history. But I think our future is bright, and I look forward to that future. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. Our future is bright. Okay. Seeing that there are no other speakers, Ms. Cicchetti, please announce our first order of business.
Good morning. Our first order of business is an announcement regarding public safety and boardroom procedure. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. The board meeting information announcement is as follows. First, I'd like to remind the audience to silence your cell phones and any other wireless devices. The current COVID-19 guidelines for the Board of Equalization strongly encourages, but no longer mandatory, that all BOE employees wear a mask while inside the BOE facility or while attending any BOE event. If needed, supplies of masks and hand sanitizer are available to all and can be found in the back of the auditorium. The public will be invited to comment during the matters before the board. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak before the board on any agenda item in person, we ask that you complete and submit to the Sergeant of Arms a public comment appearance sheet located at the entrance of the auditorium. If you wish to speak before the board by telephone, please dial the phone number and access code provided on our public agenda notice and follow the instructions of the AT&T moderator. If you intend to make a public comment today using the AT&T moderator, we recommend dialing into the meeting on the teleconference line prior to the beginning of the agenda item you wish to make a comment. We recommend this as the audio broadcast on our website experiences a 1 to 3 minute delay between the live stream and the live event. When giving a public comment, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. The order that the board identifies public comments at the conclusion of any agenda item is as follows. The clerk will first identify any public comment requests that have been received by our board proceeding staff in the auditorium. Then we will identify any public comments within the AT&T moderator. And lastly, we will read into the record any public comments received in writing in advance of today's meeting. This concludes the information announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cacchetti, could you please call the first item?
The first item is J, Administrative Consent Agenda, J1, approval of the board meeting minutes for the May 24th, 2022, June 28th, 2022, July 26th, 27th, 2022, and August 30th, 31st, 2022. The minutes of the meeting were attached to the public agenda notice for your consideration.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Cacchetti. Well, colleagues, let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead.
Oh, are we going to hear from Ms. Towers, or you want to just get into?
Ms. Towers, you coming up? Come on up. Come on up. Let's tell us about these minutes.
Yes, I'm coming up.
Okay, good to see you.
I will
Good morning.
take my seat and stay here. Good morning, Chair Cohen and members. I'm Yvette Stowers, Executive Director for the Board of Equalization. Before you are the minutes for May, June, July, and August. Just a brief reminder, I previously came to you indicating that I was going to make a change to the minute policy. I received feedback from your offices indicating that the proposed change would not provide sufficient transparency that we need and that we have for our minutes. Therefore, I made the decision not to change the policy. And before you today are the minutes that provides a summary of items that were discussed, action items taken, and all exhibits that were provided during the meeting or part of the public agenda notice have been included within those minutes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Mr. Vasquez.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Towers, and thank you for including now, I guess, the Pledge of Allegiance and all the exhibits that we had before. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then the summary descriptions, as you mentioned, I think it makes it a little bit easier, I think, for the public and for us to, as we go back and reference these, if we ever have to go back, months or even a year back into the minutes. And also, I noticed, with your the contact information on each of the exhibits that is now accessible by the disabled, I think is a key piece as well, so that the public or the staff can easily obtain copies, as requested. And if there's no other comments, I'm prepared to move the motion to accept the minutes of May, June, July, and August.
Perfect. All right, a motion has been made by Mr. Vasquez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Eppolite. Take a roll call vote.
All righty, the motion is to approve the minutes for the May 24th, 2022, June 28th, 2022, July 26th, 27th, 2022, and August 30th, 31st, 22. Chair Cohen,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye?
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Eppolite.
Great. This motion passes unanimously. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the next item.
The next item is K, Other Administrative Matters, K1A, Executive Director's Report, Organizational Update, Report on the Status of Pending and Upcoming Organizational Priorities. This matter will be presented by Ms. Stowers.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Yvette Stowers here, Executive Director for the Board of Equalization. Happy Latino Heritage Month. And for those who are celebrating the Jewish New Year's, Happy New Year's. Today, I'm going to provide you with 3 items. I'm going to highlight several upcoming meeting of notes, provide a report on the member-requested work plan for a board work group on communication and outreach, provide an overview of the Assessments Practice Survey Program. Up first today, members, I would like to provide you with some upcoming dates. On September 29th, 2022, the BOE has been invited to participate in the California Society of Enrolled Agents Annual State Tax Agency Liaison Meeting. The event will be held virtually. I will attend and give a brief overview of the BOE, along with staff from the Property Tax Department who have been asked to provide information on Prop 19. This will be our first appearance at this annual event, and I believe it's an excellent opportunity and forum for outreach to our stakeholders, and not only the agency's role in property tax, but also for getting information out to stakeholders on important property tax information. Next, on October 19th, we will hold our annual meeting with the assessors as part of our October 18th and 19th board meeting. Staff and I continue to work with the chair's office to finalize the details for this meeting. Then, on November 2nd through the 4th, California Lawyers Association will hold its 2022 annual meeting at the Tax Bar and Tax Policy Conference in San Diego. BOE Chief Counsel Henry Naljo will be participating as part of the Chief Counsel Roundtable discussion, along with Chief Counsels from other California agencies, California tax agencies. And finally, members, on November 14th through the 17th, the 120th Annual CAA Conference will be held in Solano County. Conference information and registration has been sent to your offices. I will always continue to keep you updated on upcoming dates. That's my first part of the presentation on upcoming dates. Do you have any questions or comments?
I do have a question. Director, can you tell me again the dates of the conference and the location?
For the November, or all of them?
Both.
Okay, not a problem. For the, I like to shorthand it and call it the Tax Policy Conference. But Tax Policy Conference, November 2nd through the 4th. It's in San Diego, California.
Now, that's an annual conference, right?
That is an annual conference.
You've attended.
I attended last year
Okay.
in my prior role. It is really an excellent conference. There's, one, our attorneys and our CPAs can get continuing ed.
Right.
So that's critical.
Okay.
But it's also where you have tax administrators, the Franchise Tax Board, the BOE, the CDTFA there. They're there presenting workshops in hand and in partnership with professional consultants, attorneys and representatives.
And this is the tax policy conference that you're going to be speaking at about Prop 19?
No, I'm sorry, no. I'm not speaking at that at all.
Okay.
Let me back up. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I skipped one.
Okay.
The one that I'm speaking at is on September 29th, and that is with the California Society of Enrolled Agents. I'm going to talk about BOE and all the great work that we do, and then the team is going to go into Prop 19.
Okay.
What is the site of that?
What is the site?
Where's this part?
It's a virtual conference.
Okay.
And it's limited to members of the California Society of Enrolled Agents.
Okay, got it. So you're an invited guest to
We're
present
an
to talk
investor,
about
yes.
this.
And that will include, again, all the other tax agencies. They, for some reason, had not included us, but members of the California Society of Enrolled Agents are part of our tax, what do we call it? Advisory Council.
Got it, understood. Okay, so, thank you, I'm glad I asked. So, September 29th, the California Society of Enrolled Agents discussing Prop 19 virtual. The tax policy is November 2nd through the 4th in San Diego. Now, you and I assume your executive team will be going down there?
Mr. Nigel is definitely going down there. I am considering going, I am going down there, I just haven't made the confirmation yet.
Okay.
I am going, and I believe there are different individuals within your offices.
Yes.
That have expressed a desire
Yeah.
to go.
That's right. I think we've attended before in the past.
Yes, I think, I know you have.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I will be down there because I live there, so I'll drop in.
Okay.
Great. Okay, yes, Mr. Vasquez, and then we'll go to Mr. Eppolite.
First of all, thank you, Ms. Stowers, for the update on these conferences. I know there's several of them. Well, one of them starts the 29th, which is this week. But in regards to the tax policy conference, the annual one, I would like to send a formal letter to the California Tax Board requesting that next year they include a course on property tax incentives for affordable housing, particularly the welfare exemption and the assessment of the restricted properties under Section 402.1. I think it's an area where the legal community should be aware and become more involved. And the BOE has access to experts who could serve on the instructional panel. Perhaps the board, my colleagues here would join me in this letter to see if we can have that included in their next year's conference.
Sure.
If people are.
Can you circulate the language? Do you have language for us to
Yes.
consider? All
We
right.
will submit that, and if people are comfortable with it, especially in light of, the hearings we've been having and what we're trying to do to hopefully not only facilitate, but try to streamline some of these issues around not only the abatement, the welfare, and then now just trying to expedite the process. And I know there's been some conversations with other constitutional members on this, and I think we as a state could do a better job to try to fast-track these things.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Ms.
Member Vasquez. I look forward to receiving the draft language, and I will have the team reach out to the committee for the tax policy conference
Thank you.
and see what we can do about getting that on the agenda.
Mr. Eppolite.
Just want to share with the members that the tax policy conference is organized by the Franchise Tax Board and is attended by Franchise Tax Board attorneys, the private bar, and CDTFA attorneys also attend, and that the Deputy State Controller usually attends the conference as well annually.
So you'll be there.
I will be there,
Thank you. I appreciate that, yes.
so.
I think it's important to note that program staff goes too. So on the FTB side, you will see some of their auditors, some of their more experienced auditors there. When you look at some of the topics, and he's not going to be happy, but there's some topics there that lead their way to property tax administration. And Mr. David Young or someone within his team could get some value from the conferences.
Okay. That's
And
good to
this
know.
year's location is the Hotel Dell,
Okay,
so it's always that nice
a nice
location.
draw.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But we have a discounted rate.
Oh,
Of
yes.
course.
The government rate is $125, so it's they always set it up nicely.
Thank you for all this information. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Let's keep moving.
Okay, wow. Okay, so that was dates. My next item is the potential board work group on communication and outreach. I trust that you guys have this pamphlet in front of you titled Potential Board Work Plan for Communication and Outreach. Okay. Sorry for the delay. It did not get finalized until yesterday, so therefore it's not attached to the pan, but it will be incorporated into our exhibits for the minutes. And I will send you electronic copy before the end of the day so that your team can review it.
Thank you.
But I think I had enough copies for your chief deputies. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so let's talk about this. Back on July 2022 board meeting, I was directed to bring back a work plan on potential board work group on communication and outreach that will include communication with the legislators, stakeholders, and others. To assist the board's discussion on this potential work group, it's important to review and align the board members' strategic plan goals on education and outreach. Specifically, there are two goals. One that focuses on education and outreach, which is goal 3, and the other one which focuses on building agency-wide branding, which is goal 4. Additionally, it's important to look back at what the board has accomplished to date with respect to communication and outreach. For example, and then on a district basis, members have augmented their communication and outreach with respect to monthly newsletters, press releases, constituent affairs, collaboration with local government, and social media. Members, you have also performed outreach within your district to provide your constituents with the opportunity to express issues regarding property tax administration. And once those issues have been expressed, you have brought them back to the entire board and to the agency to take action when necessary. On a statewide basis, members, you have held multiple public hearings and discussions on important issues, including base year value transfer, Prop 19, intergenerational transfer, exclusion, Prop 19, COVID-19 response, assessment appeal board's remote hearings, and property tax incentives to encourage affordable housing. These accomplishments provide many lessons learned and experiences that can be built upon. I believe that this provides a good foundation for defining next steps. For your consideration, I have drafted a high-level review of these items and provided some suggested next steps, as well as the draft work plan. Some suggested next steps is 1, evaluate the strategies that was recommended last August by what I'm referring to as the informal work group that was presented by Vice Chair Schaefer and Member Gaines regarding branding of the BOE. Another recommendation is to have the equalization districts to continue to develop an annual outreach and education plan that reflects consistent and shared approach while recognizing the different and unique needs within a district. Have the board continue to act as ambassadors to promote the Board of Equalization. Continue to enhance the board members' electronic communications, such as newsletters and social media campaigns. And most importantly, leverage existing agency prepared material for education and outreach. This material includes our Prop 19 webpage, our fact sheet, our checklist, our comparisons, and our frequently asked questions. It also includes the taxpayer rights information sheets, our information about disaster relief, and our publications such as Introduction to the California State Board of Equalization, and our annual report. And finally, as you all do, continue to work in partnership with the legislators. That concludes my presentation on the board work group communication and outreach. I'm available to answer any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vasquez.
First of all, I know I'm looking at this for the first time, so some of my comments you may have touched on a little bit on this, the written form we just got handed. But I just wanted to thank you for the outreach and the fact that you and your staff have been diligent, putting this thing together. I think it's great. It's a great start, but I'd like to see that us continue to develop it so that we have a final proposal that the board can adopt by year end if possible. Above all, I would like the plan to carry out our mission per our governance policy, to be open and accountable to the legislators, taxpayers, for assessing and collecting the proper amount of taxes due and administering exemptions. This requires a strong outreach plan with a focus on educating taxpayers and increasing voluntary compliance, including streamlining the exemption requirements on both statewide and regional basis. I think that working closely with assessors, local officials, legislators, and tax practitioners is an effective and cost-efficient method and should encourage staff and board members' participation in education activities that are proven, like the nonprofit seminars, tax practitioners educational classes, information on new laws and regulations, telephone town halls, and a speakers bureau that can respond to specific educational needs. Are just some of my thoughts, but thank you for this preliminary report.
Ms. Stowers, you were reporting on the board workload plan, right?
The board work plan for communications and outreach.
Okay. Colleagues, do you have any other questions for Ms. Stowers? If not, I want to talk.
I do at some point.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Because my discussion is about
Yeah.
around emotion, so.
Oh,
go
okay,
ahead.
all right, good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to thank you for bringing this forward, and it's a great first step, and we can move forward and develop a workshop on some of these areas as in the future. But I think I want to emphasize just these means of communication and how important they are. This list that you've given us, that many of the things that we presented in our presentation that we made to the board in terms of branding and outreach. And so I think these are all effective means of doing that, right? So a monthly newsletter, which I do, we send that out to constituents, member press releases, member events, which we've done some of those in our first term here, member constituent affairs, trying to make sure that we're communicating to our constituents that they have a means of having issues addressed. Certainly collaboration and working with local government, and both the member and staff representation with government affairs groups is so important in terms of what is happening in the legislature, and that we're in sync with what's happening in the legislature, but also those bodies that may come before the Board of Equalization, that we're listening to what their needs are, because there are certain groups that represent taxpayers, and we want to hear from them. And then, of course, social media, and then finally, upgrade of the members' website. But these are all effective means of being able to communicate with our constituent, and we can expand on these, and I'm excited about those opportunities to do so. And as we move forward, I guess I want to be careful that we're doing this in the right fashion as members of the Board of Equalization, that what we do is not political. not even perceived as being political, that we are doing things that are means of reaching out to our constituents and providing services for those. And I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is I just want to make sure that we remember some of the issues that came before this board, the Board of Equalization, that were construed or handled in the wrong way. And so as we move forward, I just think we need to do it in a careful fashion. I think we have a great opportunity and story to tell about what we do, but we have to make sure that it is dealt with in a careful fashion. So I look forward to that, and I think we have a great opportunity before us, but I just want to do so with some deliberation and caution in terms of doing it in the right way.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying that we have a history at the BOE where things went awry in terms of outreach.
Not our collective history,
Not
our
ours.
predecessors.
Not ours, right.
All right, let's put that distinction out there on the
Yeah,
record.
thank you. But so I just want to be careful in how we do this. I think there is a pathway, there is a way to do it, but I just want to make sure we do it in the right fashion so that we can continue to be a good, effective, transparent organization, which I believe we have been since we've been elected.
Yes, I agree with you, and I'm sure our counsel, Mr. Henry Nanjo, is jumping for joy over there to know that he has another ally that is going to always err on the side of abundance of caution. I appreciate you bringing that and making sure that it's at the forefront of our mind, always.
Great, thank you.
I want to make a motion that we create a board standing work group on communications and outreach. And this is different from branding of what I'm proposing. And the reason why I'm recommending this is actually in the spirit of what you just laid out, Senator Gaines. The creation of the work group would allow us to publicly notice meetings so that we can facilitate coming together. And we will not be in violation of any Bagley-Keene laws. And it would facilitate the ability for our offices and the agency to work together on a regular basis without violating, like I said, Bagley-Keene. So I'm making a motion to create a board standing work group on communications and outreach. And I believe I would like to entertain a second to this motion if there's appetite.
I would second the motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this motion? Yes, Mr. Eppolite?
For further discussion on this work plan?
Yes, that would be part of the discussion, yes. But what I'm trying to do is create an independent body that has full transparency for the members of the public, as well as our office, as well as a space for the board, for the staff to all come together. And in doing that, this work plan will, it's like a, what do you call it, evergreen document, kind of constantly fluid and subject to changes if need be. I don't foresee any, but it's a structural framework is what I'm trying to propose that will be discussing items like this. Yes. Is that clear? Okay. I see our friend and counsel, Mr. Nanjo, has stepped up to the microphone. I'd like to acknowledge him.
Thank you, Chair Cohen. I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't mention to the board that there is a little bit of caution that needs to be exercised when we're discussing communications and outreach. Specifically, as the board may remember, when the government code 15600 was altered to redefine or focus the board's duties, if you will, one of the key components of that action was the board's communication and outreach was specifically called out. And what was important, and again, I'm not saying you shouldn't do this. All I'm saying is please keep in mind that one of the things the legislation was very clear about was that the board had its own independent communications and outreach duties vis-a-vis their individual districts, and that is to be distinguished from the agency's communication and outreach duties. The board was specifically mentioned in that legislation not to interfere or affect or have any operational control over or work with the board's agent, or the agencies, I should say, communications and outreach, that was supposed to be done separately. Any communications and outreach the board members were to do were supposed to be done with their own staff. We also, as you may remember, also have a Attorney General's guidance that also kind of confirmed that at that time. So again, as you move forward on this board communication and outreach plan, just kind of be mindful of that distinction if you can.
Of course. And we do not intend to violate any laws, but ultimately this will allow us to work together for just the maximum reach and maximum impact. We're talking about just using our collective ability. I appreciate the counsel, advice and counsel, and I'm in agreement, and I receive it.
Absolutely.
I'm not moving this body in a place that would present us to be in a vulnerable position, or even to receive accusations that we're in violation of Bagley-Keene.
Yeah, and along those lines, I just wanted to remind the board, so thank you very much, Chair Cohen.
Yes,
Could
of course.
Could I expand on that, just to?
Yes.
Because I need
Sorry.
I just need clarity in my mind in terms of the reference. You're referencing AB 102?
Correct.
Okay. And so, can we get more information on that? Because what you've said is that, I think what you've said is we can't do what's being suggested in the motion, and I want to understand that. And if we can't, then we got to figure out a plan B.
Yeah. So
so-
to the extent that the motion involves board members and board member staff, that's appropriate. Where AB.
Which, by the way, is what the motion states.
What
Okay.
AB 102 and what which got embodied in Government Code, changes to Government Code Section 15600, and what the Attorney General's opinion talks about is the board has the ability to do communications and outreach in their own districts, and they utilize their own staff to do that. As far as the agency can do communications and outreach, but that's with their own staff, and there needs to be a division between the two bodies. So
Okay.
that's essentially the upshot of
Okay.
that.
Because I know
provision.
that there's, if I, like for a newsletter, I run the newsletter through the executive director before we send it out, because I want to make sure there's not anything that's inappropriate in terms of what I'm putting in my newsletter.
Sure.
So I'm asking for advice on that, for counsel in a sense. So,
And that's perfectly
so there is
appropriate.
there's some interaction in that sense, but I think the way I perceive that is I just want to make sure that our office is doing what we're doing in terms of communication in the right way.
Absolutely. I mean,
So-
we have, you have the legal department, you have the property tax department, who's there to help ensure that the information that you're presenting is accurate and doesn't have any issues. That's perfectly acceptable. Essentially, what the government code and the legislation talked about was, to the extent that the board members have communication and outreach activities, that's your communication and outreach activities, and it's done with your own staff. To the extent that the department or agency has communication and outreach activities, those are done with the department and their own staff.
Okay.
And basically, it's two separate bodies, if you will.
Right, okay. And we can seek legal advice from you in terms of
Absolutely.
how we're communicating as our own office.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also
okay.
want to add, although there's a separation, the material that agency produce
Right.
Can be shared.
should be, and it is shared, and
Yeah.
you guys do use it, and that's why I said continue to leverage on this material. I'm not sure in the motion if that was the intent of Chair Cohen, is to continue to leverage on what we have, or if you were looking for agency staff to play a more active role.
No, I wasn't looking for
Okay.
agency staff. I mean, quite honestly, we as a board have dealt with this issue already.
Mm-hmm.
You have been on the record. We've addressed this. The law doesn't prohibit the agency and the board members to work together. I'm not looking to overstep
Okay.
the boundaries of the law.
I
And
didn't think so. I just wanted to hear you say it.
I understand. But this is just for my colleagues to bring them an additional layer of comfort.
Okay.
Mr. Schaefer, hold on, I have to recognize Mr. Vasquez, and then I'll get back to you. Yes.
Along those same lines, I think it's a great idea, and I hear the caution, I guess, from our legal department that we have to be careful that we don't mix the two and put, in this case, I guess, our individual districts, for example, demanding your services for some of the community outreach stuff. And I agree that I think we should do it, and I think a lot of us are trying to do the best we can. But I think if somehow maybe we, in that motion, incorporate that we're all, I believe we all, are all in on the same page, and there's a consensus here that given the surplus that's sitting in the government's, or our governor's office, that we push for more staffing. Because, we all represent 10 million people, and I've been trying to do as much outreach and, in my district, but it's difficult. We're very limited. That's why I think a lot of times there's frustration, and we're usually looking to the BOE staff to provide help. So I don't know if there's some way to incorporate that, because if you think it's going to happen just with our current staffing, it's not going to happen. We don't have the resources.
We're going to take our first steps first. We have to create the framework first. And I think what you're describing is a separate action, something that we can certainly consider. We can consider it next month. What we're doing here today is formally coming together and saying, this is a work group, this is an area that we want to be able to come together and talk about items, not specific items. We haven't noticed anything to the public just yet, but this is a work group just on communications and outreach. And the reason why I'm proposing this as a work group is because, yes, we can individually work on our own. But just like the hand, right? You have individual fingers, but we could be a lot more stronger if we were able to collectively bring our resource, pull ourselves together, pull our thoughts together. That doesn't restrict you from talking individually to your constituents, because I'm sure you communicate different things. As a matter of fact, I read your stuff. You communicate different things than what I would communicate to my constituents. So,
Yes,
I'm not. This is not supplanting or substituting anything.
Yeah.
This is an additional tool for us as a body to be able to talk collectively, and most importantly, legally, with full transparency. So we have to notice to the public that we're going to come together. These are the things that we're going to talk about. So what I'm proposing is a framework that just, I think, enhances our efforts to if we want to use it, we can. If we don't use it, that's completely fine. I want to take Mr. Schaefer and then.
Yes, I would withdraw my second on it. I was really interested in promoting discussion on the matter, which we have done, and you now have a chance to modify it if you'd like, but our office is, from where we are right now, are not in support of it.
Okay, got you. Mr. Gaines?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to clarify what we're
Yes.
doing. And so the motion is to create a workshop environment,
A work group,
excuse
Work
me.
group,
It's a work group.
yes.
That we can call when we want to and put on the agenda.
That is correct.
Okay, and that work group would be communications and outreach.
Correct.
And it would give us an ability to collaborate or share
Correct.
ideas in terms of what each of our offices are doing, and to do that in a public setting.
That's correct.
Okay. And then we could get advice from legal counsel or
Well, they're part of
from
they're part of the
executive
work
director.
group, so they will be present. They'll be, just like they're present today.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds
Yes.
good.
Okay. Looks like we're okay. May I have a second? The second that I originally had was withdrawn. May I have a second for that
I'll
motion?
second that.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. I appreciate that. Seeing that there is no further discussion, let's call the roll. Thank you, Ms. Cicchetti.
Yes.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Ms. Julia has a question.
Yeah.
Or-
We're going to go to public comment first
Oh, yes.
before we
Oh.
go to,
Before you go to public comment,
Yes.
Madam Chair, I understand your motion. This is a standing work group.
Correct.
I'm not sure if this motion passed, if it's the desire of the board to convene this work group within the next 93 months.
Oh,
If it is, I just want to highlight that it will be an open meeting, subject to Bagley King, as you said, and I have to consider board proceedings in their capacity to facilitate another work group as we are concluding our work group for affordable housing and as we're moving into our appeal season.
Yeah, we'll work together on the details. I appreciate you speaking that into the record, but we're not
You're not there yet.
we're not there yet.
Okay.
yet.
I
We
just
don't-
wanted to say
I don't
that.
I don't have a secret agenda that I'm
Okay.
pushing. I am, again, really, one of the things that I've been really focused on is just creating the infrastructure in place so that we have the space to talk to each other that's fully transparent. So we will continue to work together and to take into consideration, because your staff is working, our staff is working, other offices are working. So I think that Mr. Vasquez has made it very clear that we need additional staff, but that
That's a
is
separate issue.
a separate issue. So, now there's a motion has been made. We're going to take public comment, and then we're going to take action on the motion.
Yes.
All right, let's go to public comment.
AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to make a public comment, you may press 1 then 0 at this time. It'll be just a moment for our first comment. And at this time, there's no one in queue.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So let's go to, Mr. Vasquez?
Just one, more of a point of clarification, and I think Ms. Stowers kind of hit it on the nail. So it's obviously your intentions to create this mechanism that we may or may not be able to use the next, I guess, 90 days, depending on the workload of staff. Is that correct?
No, what I was doing is I don't know what the staff's workload is, and I don't know what we want to talk about. So we're creating the infrastructure. I don't know. If we're discussing an item and she says, you know what, that's really burdensome, I don't know if we can get to that this month, maybe next month. So the point that I'm making is that we would be talking about it, just like we talk about when we add things to the agenda. So,
So, if I may, if the motion passes, it's a standing work group. So, as a standing work group, I am assuming that this would be an item on our public agenda notice.
correct,
And we may, and then when the group is being convened and is convened.
correct.
So we will have to take some steps on our side, but that's not a major issue at all.
Right, I think the steps on your side in terms of just adding it to the
Yeah,
agenda
that's-
item and
that's-
everything. I
we
mean,
can handle that.
Exactly, we've got that.
And Chair Cohen, I'm
Yes,
sorry
sir.
to interrupt, but I don't know if you wanted to discuss this at this point or not, but pursuant to the board's work group charter that this board has adopted, in forming a work group according to the charter, you're supposed to include the meeting plan per the charter. I don't know if you want to just kind of put a pin in that and do that at your next discussion of this work group, but typically, the charter talks about the whole meeting plan and what, having a little bit more meat, if you will, to the formation of the charter, the work group, I should say. So I just bring that to your attention as a reminder.
Thank you very much. Is there precedent for establishing a work group without a plan? Because this is new information to me.
So the charter that the board adopted talks about not only, when you form the work group, also having kind of a meeting plan and having a little bit more scope attached with the motion and starting a work group. So this would be a departure from your work group charter, which obviously the board can do
Yeah.
on a vote. It's just, I'm again bringing it to your attention.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Then let's table this item and we'll bring it back next month.
Thank you.
Or maybe even tomorrow, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how quickly we can pull our stuff together. So we're going to adjourn this meeting, not adjourn, but we're going to recess this meeting.
Right.
And so let's leave it open and possibly bring it back for discussion tomorrow.
Great. The other thing, I'm sorry, my apologies, I was a little slow on the draw. I noticed that you did not do public comment for the approval of the minutes, and that's typically what the board does. So what I would suggest is we make a call for public comments during, at this point in time. If we have a public comment, we can then retake the vote. If we have no public comments, then the vote should be fine.
Great, so what we could do is we'll take public comment on the minutes simultaneously as we take public comment on this item.
I think we already took public comment on this item, so we're good to go
Okay.
with the minutes.
Okay, so then before we go to the next item, let's open up for public comment for the first item on the agenda, which was the approval of the minutes.
I apologize for missing the public comment on the minutes. Let's go to the AT&T moderator. Can you please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding item J1, the approval of the board minutes?
Once again, if you would like to make a public comment, you may press 1 and 0 at this time. And I'm seeing no one in queue.
All right, thank you
Right.
very
And
much.
That means the vote should be fine, so thank you very much, Chair, members of the board.
All right. Please, let's call the next item.
The next item on the agenda is K1B, Executive Director's Report, approval of the 2023 Board Workload Plan. The plan consists of the 2023 board meeting calendar, annual property tax calendar, and significant dates considered in setting board meeting dates. This item is presented by Ms. Stowers.
Thank you. Actually, I'm still on K1A.
Okay.
Okay.
Told you I was going to be up here a while. Okay, before we go to K1B, I also want to report out on the third item, which is the Assessment Practice Survey Program. Members, as you know, when assessments practice surveys are completed, the surveys are issued to various parties as required by statute, as well as to the public as they are part of our letters to assessors, and they are also placed on our website. Also, many of our stakeholders announce in their newsletters the results of an assessment practice survey. Finally, the current 5-year cycle of scheduled surveys is included in the board's 2023 annual work plan and is available on our website. A little history. In 2014, we launched a web page dedicated to the information about the Assessment Practice Survey Program. The web page was developed in consultation with the California Assessors Association to provide greater transparency about the survey program. The web page includes the scope of the review of a survey, the authority and citations for the review, again, the letters to assessors, common recommendations per topic, and historical recommendations going back to 1998. The assessment practice survey topics, which are described in this web page, includes administration issues such as appeals, forms, and staffing. It also includes real property issues such as change of ownership and decline in value. And finally, it includes personal property and fixtures such as aircrafts, property statements, and business property valuation. In addition to this webpage, it is important to note that the agency staff evaluates the surveys to determine the need for additional training for the assessor staff, the need for a redesign or a new property tax form, the need for possible legislative changes to address an issue, and identify emerging issues. At the December 2020 board meeting, as part of Chair Cohen's L item, the board directed the executive director to look into the feasibility of placing LTAs, including surveys, on the board agenda. As a result, beginning in 2021, we began placing all LTAs, including assessment practice surveys, on the board's agenda under the Property Tax Deputy's Director's Report, where the chief of the County Assessed Property Division reports out on these LTAs. This provides the board the opportunity to have discussion on any of the items. Recognizing that there may be a need to provide additional sunlight on the assessment practice survey program. Staff will be having a meeting with the California's Assessment Practice Survey Subcommittee to discuss how we can do more within our board agenda of providing more information. Members, that concludes my presentation on the Assessment Practice Survey Program. I'm available for any questions or comments.
Great, thank you very much for the update. I appreciate you bringing this matter back before the board. The information provided today was very helpful and gives us something to consider. Let me see if there's anyone else, any other, no, listen, no, okay, all right, thank you. Ms. Stowers, that concludes your presentation?
I now have K1B.
Okay,
That is the board workload plan for 2023.
okay.
Okay, I will go ahead.
You may.
Next, I am presenting to you for your consideration the 2023 Board Workload Plan. The Board Workload Plan contains the proposed board meeting calendar for 2023 based upon statutory timeframes and deadlines. It also includes the 2023 property tax calendar and other significant dates for your reference and planning. This item is presented for board discussion and consideration. The board's adoption of the workload plan before you today will allow staff to prepare the 2023 calendar of regular board meeting dates. Then, if the board would like to schedule additional meetings, the 2023 board workload plan can be updated accordingly. Members, I now ask for your adoption of the 2023 board workload plan. Thank you.
Of course. I think Mr. Vasquez has something?
Yes, and looking at it, I'm comfortable with it. I was just, my only question, I guess, on the, you have the projected dates for our meetings for 2023.
Yes,
If we were to tweak those still could happen, 2-3 months out, right?
yes, it can happen in 2 or 3 months out
Okay.
based on the board's pleasure. What we would normally do, let's say a member decides, would like to have an additional date or would like to have
Or
another
change the
topic or
date.
something, we would just confirm everyone's availability and, of course, take the necessary steps to secure the auditorium. But it is where there is flexibility in the dates and the topics, except for the ones that we have to do by statutory
right.
deadline.
I am good with the rest.
Okay, good. Anyone on my left? Any questions, any comments? No? Okay.
You need a motion for that?
Yes, but,
Oh, I'm
yes,
sorry.
that's okay. But we're going to take public comment, I think, on both those last two items. We didn't take public comment on the first one.
I don't think so.
About the quarterly reports, and so I wanted to close out that conversation very quickly, and just reiterate that placing quarterly reports on the agenda, these is something that I'd like to move forward in the practice that we do. The assessment practices surveys, just bring them to us so that we can discuss them, review them if there are any questions. And I'd like for the quarterly reports to be presented to the board in the form of the assessment practice surveys. Am I clear?
I think you're clear. Basically, you're asking that have more discussion about the surveys themselves, highlight the surveys.
More light, more transparency, right? If it warrants questions or more discussion, then we'll go there. If not, then we obviously won't take up the issue.
Okay. Let me work on how we can do that. And I do want to note that they are not necessarily completed on a quarterly basis.
So are they, I understand that, so are they, can we gather what is completed, that is in the first quarter, present? Gather what you have completed in the second quarter and present them. They don't have to necessarily be disseminated. Does that make sense? So maybe in the first quarter you have 3, and maybe in the second quarter you have 2.
I understand that.
Okay.
I think it might be more efficient if we did it 6 months. because of the time it takes to complete the surveys, we can clearly present like a catch-up. At some point, let's say January, we can do an overview of the completed surveys, and I don't think we need to go back to 1998.
No, we don't need to go back to
But we can, let's just stick with current and say, these are the surveys, these are the recommendations that we found. Maybe there was an emergent issue, this was an emergent issue we saw, this is the steps that we took to address it.
I think so. So just colleagues, just as a reminder, I mean, the assessment surveys are important because what it is, it's like an audit tool that, that the Board of Equalization conducts randomly selected counties to help them period. I don't know, there may be some issues, there may not be any issues. Ms. Stowers, you're right, I don't want to go back to 1998. Is it possible to go back to maybe when this board began, 3 years? Before you answer that, before you start sweating,
I knew it was going to be
we can work together on exactly, because what we could possibly do is start within the last 6 months, and then work back to January or the beginning of 2019, as opposed to marshaling all together, putting together a presentation, and then bringing it back to us, to the Board of Equalization. I have some flexibility. What I'm just looking to do now is just to create, again, more transparency on the work that we're doing here on the board. And so those surveys are really important tools. Few people know. And the way, in my mind, the reason why I'd like to bring this to, public is just, again, as an opportunity for the public to know what we're doing. When I'm thinking about our outreach, when I'm thinking about communicating our brand, communicating our value add to the state of California, it's making sure that people understand the work that we're doing, what we've done, why we're doing it, and how we do it. So I don't want to focus on specific counties. I just simply want to highlight best practices. That's it. I want to understand the gaps in technology and staffing, because I think that it bolsters our budgetary arguments when we go and we make a request for more money for technology that we have done successfully on behalf of the county assessors. So I want to be able to identify emerging issues. These assessment survey practices can flag emerging issues. And also, it gives us an opportunity to study lessons learned. So I just want to give you a little bit more insight into my thinking, my rationale, and colleagues, just so you know where I'm trying to guide this body. And again, so that is my intent. And we will work together. We will have flexibility. I'm not looking to overburden, although I will say we have done a great job of hiring up and staffing. But I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable about what I'm proposing. So I'm happy to articulate any more or answer any other questions. Look like Mr. Gaines has a question.
Just a comment. I think it's a great idea, just in terms of, people ask us, what do we do at the BOE? And I think one of the key roles is that we audit, we do surveys, right, of the 58 county assessors. But that's about all we ever hear, right, is that the organization does it, but I never really know what the net result is, or I just think it would be nice for our constituents to know what's happening at their assessor office in their particular county. Because we do these things and they go to the assessor, they go to the Board of Supervisors, but maybe the Board of Supervisors doesn't bring it up. Assessor has it, so they use it for their own personal, or their use internally, which is good. But it'd be nice for us to have some sort of oversight or review. So it'd be nice to know, what are the issues in particular counties? Is there a trend where a lot of counties have the same problems?
So that is what I'm looking like for big themes. And also, the Board of Supervisors, every county is unique, right? So they may
Right.
have capacity, they may post it, they may not post it. But it's like it's a layer It's
Right.
another layer of transparency of the work that we're doing.
Right.
And I want to see, I think that's pretty much it. I see a love note was passed.
Yes, yes, a note was passed, and I think I covered it. I appreciate what you guys are saying. It's just have more discussion on the surveys. What are the trends? What are the emerging issues? And you're not asking for it to go back to the beginning of your time.
No.
And you're not asking to pull the trigger tomorrow. Just take some time and plan it out so that we can have this public discussion.
That's correct. And more so what is most important to me is that we establish it moving forward into the future.
Okay.
And again, these are really, we know the Board of Equalization staff spends a tremendous amount of time and energy on this part of our business. And we should be highlighting it and sharing it publicly about what we're learning from the assessment surveys.
I
And
will, Mike, I will work on that. You're absolutely right. There are compliance audits. They are critical. That's one of our key functions. We use the term survey, but they're audits.
Yes, they are.
And we have some really experienced and qualified appraiser auditors. They have valuation experience, and they have audit experience. And they're the ones who's carrying out this work. And I'm sure they would love to share. So we will work on how we can push it out more
Thank you.
in a public meeting.
Thank you. And again, I want to just reiterate, I don't want any fear or intimidation. I'm not looking, we don't have to go back to 1998 to stick with the example. And even flexibility. I threw out a number going back to just when this body started. But my main priority really is moving forward.
Moving forward, yeah.
Moving forward.
I will
Okay.
work on that, and, although we do some report out, it's not as detailed, so we will expand on that. And thank you.
Yes, and I want to highlight something that Mr. Vasquez said earlier about the staffing gap. At the staffing gap, you'll also see in our county assessor's office, which the assessment surveys, these audit tools catch, and they have been catching. And so our job is, in terms of providing oversight and guidance and direction for the 58 county assessors, is to also advocate on their behalf. So just like we are feeling the pinch on staffing, on reduced staffing levels, so are our assessors, and it is impeding on their doing their business. So this is just almost like another affirming what you said, but it would bolster the argument when we go to ask for additional revenue. And I'm just sticking with the example. I'm not saying that we need more staff or we plan to go ask for it. We're not advocating that. That was just the example that was given that I just wanted to highlight how, and connect the dots, how the assessment surveys filter into exactly what you're saying to what we are experiencing on an individual level. So instead of taking it from a micro level, bringing it up to a macro level and elevating that. So, yes, Ms. Towers.
Great conversation. So that there's no misunderstanding, will you make a motion, please?
Sure.
I did you already.
A motion,
To,
okay, all right, I got it.
Staff recommendation.
Yes, I'll make a motion to adopt the staff recommendation. Maybe you can reiterate it.
I'm sorry, we've talked in so many different items.
I know.
One, we have not approved the workload calendar yet. So we need a motion for that. And I'm also asking for a motion with respect to
The assessment
the
surveys?
surveys, yes.
Okay, all right, sure. So what I'd like to do is, in terms of, okay, I'll make a motion to ask staff to bring the assessment surveys to the, I'll make a motion to recommend that quarterly agenda items be placed on the board agenda, broad. And within that, it is understood that assessment surveys will fall into that category.
Okay.
Quarterly agenda items be placed on the board agenda for assessment practice surveys. That is my motion. Okay, I heard surround sound in my second, but I think I heard Gaines first. So I'm going to acknowledge the second made by Senator Gaines. And let's take public comment on this one, and then we'll go back to the calendar item. Let's take public
AT&T
comment.
moderator, could you please find if anyone's on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding the assessment practices motion?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to make a public comment at this time, you may press 1 and 0. And there's no one in queue.
Thank you very much. All right, let's take a vote on this, please.
Yes. Chair Cohen,
Thank you, yes.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines, Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Epelite.
Aye.
All right, sounds like this motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, Ms. Towers, one more item before us, okay?
The workload,
Excuse me?
the workload plan.
The workload plan.
The workload plan. And so
Staff recommendation on the workload plan.
I'll make a motion to accept the staff recommendation on the workload plan. One caveat, I don't recall if we took public comment on this or not.
Nope, we're going to have to do that.
All right, let's take
Yes.
public comment before we take up the vote.
Okay. AT&T moderator, can you let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding the board workload plan?
Once again, if you'd like to make a public comment, you may press 1 and 0. At this time, there's no one in queue.
All right, thank you very much. So the motion has been made to accept, a motion has been made, and a second, just want to call for the record that Mr. Epelite is going to be abstaining from this particular vote. And with Ms. Cicchetti, if you could call the roll.
Yes, can you, who is the second on this motion?
It was Mr. Senator Gaines.
Okay, I just wanted to, for the record. Thank you. Chair Cohen,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines, Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Epelite.
Abstain?
All right, thank you. Motion passes. Ms. Towers, thank you very much for the presentation. All right, let's stick with the agenda and continue to move forward.
Alrighty. The next item on the agenda is K1C, Executive Director's Report, Operational Priorities, Report on the status of the operational priorities of the agency.
Thank you.
This matter will be presented by Ms. Renati.
Good morning, Chair Cohen and honorable members. My name is Lisa Renati. I'm Chief Deputy Director. Today, I'll report on some of the agency's operational priorities and projects. The first item is our recruitment. Since the last report to the board, we have filled 6 positions, 3 promotions of internal candidates, and 3 positions were filled with professionals new to state service. Our remaining vacancies are in active recruitment, and we continue to make meaningful progress in our goal to reduce vacancies using merit hiring principles. The next item is our strategic goal regarding workforce development. Now that we've made solid progress in filling key positions and reducing our vacancies, we are working towards developing and implementing succession plans for essential roles and subject matter areas to ensure the continuity of knowledge and to create a culture of professional growth and development. Members, as you know, at BOE, we're a specialized group of property tax experts, and we must be strategic in the way we bring in and grow our talent. To be proficient, we know it takes time and experience to develop the property tax expertise that the state, local governments, and stakeholders rely on. As we bring on new staff and as we promote staff into positions of greater responsibility, we must provide staff with tools needed to successfully perform and grow in their roles. In addition to our traditional coursework and training, we are holding weekly team meetings. We are fostering mentor-mentee relationships. We are cross-training staff on multiple functions. We are including multi-level staff and managers in planning sessions, which allows everyone a seat at the table to contribute and learn. And we are providing practical experience with an intentional focus on knowledge transfer and succession planning. The management team is committed to these efforts so that we may develop the next generation and also to develop the next experts for property tax administration and management. This concludes my presentation on the agency's day-to-day operational priorities, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, questions?
I do, if I could.
Please, Mr.
Yeah,
Haynes.
great, thank you. So we hired, okay, so we promoted 3 within,
Mhm.
and then we hired 3 from the outside.
Correct.
Did we have any retirements?
Not as of this past 2 months.
Okay.
Well, I don't have that in front of me. I don't believe so.
Okay, great. And our, I'm not sure if this is the right term, but our vacant positions are declining, right?
They are. Incrementally, they are declining. We've had,
Yes.
when you have a promotion in-house, that creates another vacancy. So you have to
Right.
just look at the new hires coming in.
Yeah,
So we are down considerably from where we were, especially 2 years ago.
great, excellent. Good job, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you for that update. And now that I guess there's been a shift, right? Now that the priorities have shifted to succession planning and workforce development and knowledge transfer, could you give us a brief outline of what those processes entail?
Well, as I described, we are working, in addition to our regular intensive training and making sure all of our staff have the coursework needed and get the certification needed, we are doing more meetings. We have weekly meetings with the management and staff, weekly meetings with managers, weekly meetings with executive staff. So we're constantly having, I know it seems like a lot of meetings, but through that in-person and also in sometimes hybrid collaboration, you're having more and more people listen to what's going on. It's difficult when everyone was hybrid to try to do that, and now that we are doing this, really doing a focus on it, we're having more people at the table. And I bring that up because if it's just, Ms. Stowers and Henry and I in a room deciding what's going to be done, it doesn't really translate to getting all the good ideas. We're bringing new people into the room. We're bringing new managers, new supervisors in the room and asking their opinion. Same thing's going on within the department. So that's that knowledge transfer, that ability to bring new ideas to the table, the process improvement project that we've been talking about for the last year also works in that. Because as you do process improvement, you break down the processes, figure out how you're doing things and how to make it better. That trains all your new staff of why do we do things? How can we do it better? So that's a couple examples.
Thank you.
Mr. Renati, what I'm hearing is that you're no longer doing virtual meetings. We've gone back to face-to-face.
We're doing hybrid. Some of our meetings are completely in person, which is kind of fun to do when you haven't seen people for a few years. Some are hybrid, and some are completely virtual. It's just hard to coordinate schedules of everyone when not everyone has the same days in the office.
Thank you. Let's take public comment.
Ms. Renati has one other item we're going to take up
Okay.
before we go to public comment.
Okay, thank you.
K1D, Executive Director's Report, Prop 19 Implementation Project. Report on the status of the agency's Proposition 19 Implementation Project, presented by Ms. Renati.
Thank you. Again, I'm Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director, and today I will provide an update on our Proposition 19 implementation project. A high-level implementation plan is attached to today's agenda. This plan includes 7 identified work categories needed to implement Prop 19 and a high-level description of associated activities within each category. I'm happy to report that the status of BOE's implementation project is green. That means no issues to report. The BOE has a dedicated webpage regarding Prop 19, which can be accessed through our homepage. The webpage includes guidance, frequently asked questions, and related legislation, in addition to other resources to assist taxpayers. As of September 26th, our Prop 19 webpage has received approximately 383,000 unique external page views since we launched the page in November 2020. This includes an additional 28,100 unique external page views for the 2-month period of August and September. This concludes my presentation on this topic. I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I have no questions. Colleagues, do any of you have any questions?
I do, if I
Yes.
could.
Yes, please, you can.
Yeah, just in reference to Prop 19, what are we doing from a staffing standpoint because of the additional workload as a result of Prop 19?
When we implemented Prop 19, we had a lot of vacancies, as you understand, and so but when we went through and looked at our plan of how we were going to manage the plan, we were able to use existing positions, and as we fill them, continues those existing positions.
okay.
So we didn't have a need for additional staffing,
Okay.
but should another historic Prop 19 type legislation be passed, we would probably need to find more staffing.
Okay, all right, so that need may change in the future, too. Part of my concern is tracking all these properties and the ownership changes. I guess that's happening that's really happening at the local level?
It's, and I know
Or-
Dave can speak better to it when he gives his presentation, but we do have technology of our own that we've developed to track our portion of different
Okay.
items, and so he can speak much more eloquently than I can on that subject.
Great, as long as if we've got excess capacity because of the fact that we haven't been fully hired, that's great use.
Yes, we're very
Of those
close to being
positions, so
filled.
that's-
We're very
yeah.
close.
Good, all right. Thank you.
Mr. Eppolite has a question now.
Mr. Renati, are we also able to track how many hits we're getting for the career opportunities link on the homepage as well?
We would be able to, I don't have that information, but we would be able to do that, yes.
Okay. Thank
We-
you.
All right. Looks like we have no other questions. Thank you for the presentation. Let's go to public comment.
AT&T moderator, can you please find out if there's someone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding these reports?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to make a public comment, but you may press 1 and 0 at this time. At this time, there's no one in queue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's call the next item, please.
Not so sure if we wanted to take a break at this time or we wanted to continue on.
I'm happy to take a break. How long do you suggest?
A 10-minute break?
All right, we'll take a 10-minute break. We will reconvene at 11:45. Thank you.